So this week in the Geographical Ideas reading group, we're looking at critical geographies, radical theory and critical practice. In the lecture we looked at Karl Marx and his influence on Marxist geographies, and in this reading there were also mentioned in dispatches feminism and post-colonial geographies that we'll be turning to next week. This week, in Duncan Fuller and Rob Kitchen's piece, Radical Theory, Critical Practice, Making a Difference Beyond the Academy, looking at a range of questions, thinking about what inspiration should we take from Karl Marx's notion that geography and geographical knowledge isn't there simply to understand the world, but crucially it's there to transform the world, it's to change the world. What role should we as academics and you as scholarly students have in relation to that world? Is your job simply to understand that world, write good essays, get a good degree, or to use your knowledge, your privileged position almost within society, as someone who can afford to and intellectually capable of doing a degree, should you use that knowledge in trying to improve the world in some way? That notion that our knowledge is there to actually change the world in certain ways is actually embodied in the very presence of this paper. As we can see, it's an e-press Praxis publication, and often many of these publications are instead of being copyright, they are copyleft, i.e. they're free access and openly available to anyone. And that itself is a political gesture. Many of the journals we've been reading, when the books that you read from the library are highly expensive to buy, journals are even more expensive, only universities can get access to them really. The lay public out there don't get access to this sort of material. And yet, if it's through this e-press, then it's freely available to anyone via the internet. And that they're trying to make a difference beyond the academy simply by talking to those publics, those publics, either by choice or simply through lack of awareness of this knowledge form, can even actually get this knowledge. So that's one way, just in the very way they produce their work, that these authors are trying to make a difference beyond the academy. These are the questions I want you to think about when reading this piece of work, and bear in mind when the sorts of time and the sorts of social issues in the late 20th century that Fuller and Kitchen are reviewing here and being the prompts to form geographers to change their mindset in relation to what their knowledge should be about and what it should seek to change. Geography and the social sciences more broadly always has this reciprocal relationship to society. It has to mirror and tackle and answer the questions that broader society want to have. What were the social issues in the 1960s and the 1970s and indeed the 1980s up until the present day that prompted concern amongst social geographers and sought them to change and reinvent themselves in order to tackle those issues more broadly? What indeed were the external debates that were changing the very nature of the discipline? And then from that, what impassioned plea does Smith make in 1976 in relation to these social issues? Once you realise what his opinion is, what's your opinion about his stance on these issues? What do you think geography should be? How should it relate itself to the broader issues of the day? From this broader reading, I want you to think about, would you take the position of someone like Don Mitchell, who says that geography is there to provide knowledge for other people to do something with? Or would you take the position of someone like Ian Maxey, who would suggest that we have to use that knowledge and connect with the trenches ourselves? How would you justify your position on this argument? And would this be an argument that you could perhaps rehearse in your essays later in the module? So given that there are an array of approaches to radical and critical geography outlined in this paper, what, according to Fuller and Kitchen, unites this group, this paradigm of workers? And what role, in your opinion, should geographers take on social issues? Should we seek to connect with the trenches? Should I seek to radicalise you and become revolutionaries within society? Or should we work within the system and not challenge the system? Should we perpetuate the status quo with our knowledge in order that we get good careers, for example, rather than perhaps challenging the system in a more explicit way?